Now, I'll tell you, I took a different twist on this because of just what he's saying.
Yeah.
You can have the world's greatest convention, and at the end of that, they say, it was great, everything was perfect, and we'll see you here again in 3 or 4 years if everything works perfectly.
Yeah.
So you're constantly working to try to fill dates, and so you have a moving target all the time. So I tried to define trade shows as a separation from conventions. They said, well, what's the difference? A trade show is a local organization, typically, that has it could be Ford trucks and the truck show.
Power and equipment.
Yeah, outdoor power and equipment. That was one that came. The truck show comes because there's a lot of interest in that, and there's an interest, I think. So you got to have a sponsor, a local committee. Somebody's got to drive that deal. But a trade show comes back every year, and you build as you go. So, 52 groups, you're sold out. Because they're here for 3 or 4 days. They move out, the next one moves in. So we put our feet up for 3 days while the trucks are coming and going. Bam, here we are, the next one.
I think that's one of the biggest positive moves that Kentucky made with the Kentucky Fair and Exposition Center and the Commonwealth. But the Kentucky Fair, I call it, that's what I've
Fair and
called it,
Exposition.
KFEC.
Yeah, KFEC.
Yeah, when people like Joe Bell, the director, or Harold Workman, when he was in there, they started it. So they became basically the management of, and sometimes co-sponsored with an organization, North American Livestock. Well, look what it does. That the National Street Ride, which I was involved with years ago to come to Louisville because they wanted to move out of Ohio, but it took a facility.
You helped bring Hot Rods?
Oh yeah, yes, I was very involved with the committee. Carl Casper had part of it. We had individuals like Glenn Ray with a local car club. That made a difference. This local car club that was going on at the time helped bring that here. And so we go up and bid on it, and we got it.
And 2/3 of the nation's within a day's drive of Louisville.
Big
another
number.
reason why Louisville does well. One, it's got 1 million square feet under roof. So it competed with Las Vegas, Orlando. And all this contiguous parking space. So there was the other key to these things, right? So
are you talking when you say covered space? Are you talking the
Fair
convention
Center,
but also the convention center?
The
downtown?
convention center downtown, to me, was built. But here's the problem with that: they floated that to the second floor and put ramps in. Everything that goes in there has to be moved to the second floor, and it's killed it ever since they started it.
They've had some. There's a market for them. But it's less of a market than bringing in, because you might have 2 trade shows out there compared to 1 down in terms of size. East Wing,
just
West
a practical,
Wing.
that's some practical advice. Don't build your convention center on the second floor.
I'd like to reiterate that it goes back to the local organization, the State Fair Board, the way it was operating then and how they would expend some dollars in tourism because they know what it means, with the room tax, sales tax. So I commend the state at the time when they were, and they're still going after the major shows like that, but they own some of them.
The argument was always, and I was in a lot of those meetings, do not book local groups. It's all about room nights. And here's the speech. Let's decide where the fewest number of people decide where the most number of people come. So if you can book the Street Rod Nationals, 13,000 cars, probably 40, 50,000 people in town. Yeah. That's a pretty good hit. Yeah. Let's don't book the local group.
It's unbelievable. Come and see it there. It's cars as far as you can see. It's beautiful.
But I'm saying don't book the local high school basketball tournament that may have 1,200 people.
Right.
And then they say, well, we got a chance to bid on this group. Well, sorry about that, but we're booked up.
Yeah.
So the biggest has got to come first, and everything else becomes filler business. So the argument was always, let's don't have a horse show competing with a major trade show.
Exactly.
Stay away from, we got to book these dates 5, 10, 15 years out. And the smaller stuff has to fit in when it can.
They have to have the hotel rooms to go. So it had to be a team concept there. Package that you work together and go after and bid. How many rooms do you have available?
When he says room nights, the whole thing of that was how long, if you stay 3 nights, and you're a person that's here, that's 3 room nights.
Yeah.
A lot of those it was really I think they had a nice term called rebates, room rebates, but it's what fueled the organization. I would try to get these local groups to help me bid on those, and they said, "Why would I do it?" And I said, "You could probably make $50,000, in a week."
Sure.
Because the hotels are going to be the recipient of all these guests, and the hotels are going to make a lot of money. And if we can get them to give us $5, $10, $15 per room night back, that's where the money is generated to the host organization.
Okay, and then to repeat the cycle.
And repeat the cycle every year.
And,
Now we're
and cause
talking-
it to grow.
And cause it to grow.
Oof.
And everybody's
I
winning.
love that.
Everybody's winning.
Yeah.
So there's the engine that drives that whole thing.
That's what I would consider the World Series. That type of market. Now back up to local, and you get the smaller meetings, the board meeting.
Yeah.
And that's where local communities, like Southern Indiana, the Convention and Visitors Bureau there, they weren't part of the Louisville Metro at the time. Now they are in terms of the rooms availability. They work together very well. But even the small communities of, 20, 30, you never know what the spinoff might be.
Mm-hmm.
That's what
or the
happened.
displacement. So if hey, I'm going into Louisville to have a meeting with my corporation, and we need 35 room nights. I'm like, I'm sorry, that's during the Street Rod Nationals.
Yeah.
Let me put you in touch with somebody in Elizabethtown or Jeffersonville, Indiana.
It's a referral system. It's a network.
So you kick them on to the next group. Well, that group's not playing with the big, as you're talking about the World Series, but they are playing with the compression that sold everything out for 10 days, and these people are still coming in and had no affiliation with the major group.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly. Some of them are called rump shows.
Yes,
They
which became
RUMP?
illegal in Kentucky.
which
You
was
ever heard
an
that term?
unaffiliated
RUMP.
unaffiliated group riding the coattails of a national convention or something and exhibit space, and it could be a corporate entity
Yeah.
that has power equipment or whatever.
If you're having a horse show, they may have a saddle show, but that's
Well-
50 miles away in a
Yeah.
smaller burg, and they're trying to hitchhike
Right.
on the big group.
Yeah.
On the World Series level, like we have the Kentucky Derby here in Louisville, the first
Yeah.
weekend of March, April,
Of May.
May. And
First Saturday,
you
May.
better not be wanting to have a little convention, or big or little.
Exactly.
But it doesn't mean that you couldn't go to a surrounding community and still your members could participate in Derby activities while having their own convention,
In
small
some
convention.
cases, they
Like
see a
Georgetown
balloon
would be-
race are some
Yes.
of the things.
Yeah.
A lot of high ticket items out there necessarily receive tickets for the Kentucky Derby or the Oaks or the other days. But that's a 50-mile reach.
It is. So how does
Yeah.
Derby affect Georgetown? Does it? I mean, I'm talking.
Yeah, it does.
Let me give context too, because
we only have right now one hotel, and there's
from
another one
1850.
planned on the board, 75 rooms, and then we are working with Redwire to promote one additionally right across the road. So, but really, family.
Yeah.
If you have a family from Indianapolis that wants to participate, bring them down as your guest. You're going to have restaurant business. You do need some reservations, but
Yeah.
but also you can watch the parade. You can see the fantastic balloon race.
Fireworks.
There's so many Derby
Thunder
festivals.
over Louisville, yeah.
Thunder, air show.
Thunder is coming up next
in April. 2
April.
weeks before the Derby, so mid-April.
Yeah, it's coming up.
Either Thunder or Derby is in like 35 days from today.
That's crazy to think
Yeah,
about.
it's crazy.
Yeah, that's it. So there are events that you can participate. I have friends that I've met over the years in the hotel business or have been here, and there are times working through Bellman to get tickets. You know, and it once in a lifetime.
Yeah.
Type thing, especially with the expansion going on, there might be more tickets.
If you had to tell
Probably.
a local community, if you had to give a tip to local communities that wanted to slowly start tourism in their area, what would you say the first 3 things are to do?
Well, first, I'd look at some of the businesses that are there in the community itself and do some research on a connection of those businesses with affiliated meetings or travels or events. And it does take much of a facility. You know, you can do it at a church
Yeah.
area if you want to bring a group in. But the family reunions,
Yes.
I'm saying look in with yourself. Bring a family reunion in or work with some of your family to bring a few in. But I think it would be, I guess the very first thing is you have to build that teamwork with the town council or the county council. The economic development can fall in line with the state and through the local economic development. So and I guess number one, educate them on tourism.
Yeah.
They don't understand the necessary impact of tourism
Yeah.
on the restaurants and the sales tax that comes in at the same time. Other options could be like I say we at the time, it was Louisville, Kentucky, the Performing Arts Center.
Yeah.
It was built because of a local option tax, the funding of that for tourism. So I'd say number one would be education on what tourism value is. And it's not quite just a trickle down, which to some degree it is, but it is a build up. It builds your community.
Yeah.
It's clean. It's rewarding, I think, financially. But
They say if you keep people in town 3 hours, they eat lunch.
You know, I was going to say,
But if you can keep them in town for a day, they spend the night. So you got to think of a way.
Yeah.
The terms that we would use behind the doors was, what's the mousetrap, right?
yeah,
Look
to get them to spend a night, spend
So
2 nights.
we got to have a tour. We got to have
It's what a lot of families want too. They want to get out and spend a couple nights, spend a night with their family, come in, spend the next day, go home.
I put a proposal together that was not accepted, but I wanted to do, there are like 2-watt radio stations that you can buy and you don't have to have a license for. So I wanted to position these radio stations around the community, and you tune your car radio to my station and drive the tour and listen to the history tour predicated on what you were seeing.
That was pre-internet, you guys.
Exactly. That was old school.
A radio.
Right.
As I am.
One addition, I guess, because
I meant that
we
was live.
sort of think,
More.
well, I say, yeah, we do kind of think old school to some degree, but there's such an impact now on social media, the Facebook, LinkedIn, a connection there. Work with a professional that can help you that you may not understand.
Navigate
or your
social
community
media
is not
kind of
aware of
things,
how
yeah.
that works. So building a strong social media team, one person or two or three, but someone's
And campaign, yeah.
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 And that's basically it. It is an ad campaign.
Yeah.
It's
The funny part, if I may, you said, let's have a conversation today. And I said, okay. Rather than, he said to me, don't interview me. Let's have a conversation about this.
Yeah.
Because we were both involved in it for 50 years. And my speech on advertising these things was non-traditional content delivery. They said, meaning what? Well, if we can go to Papa John's and say, the pizza box is going out anyway. Can we put a coupon in there to ride along with the pizza box? Can we print on the bottom? Can we put? I'm sure you'll remember. A friend of mine did this for the state of Tennessee. They put "Follow Me to Tennessee" on the back of semi trucks.
Oh,
It
yeah.
was revolutionary at the time.
Yeah.
Because here came. Every time you'd see
That's
these
a good
trucks,
one. Yeah.
and then they the UPS they did that.
I want to
with-
mention an example, but I don't know if I want to give your example away. Didn't you do something?
Oh yeah, tell the story. Inside a pizza box.
Well, go ahead. You tell
I
it.
just said, somebody put their logo on the bottom of a NASCAR, and unfortunately it showed up because the car ended
Flipped.
up upside down.
Oh, no.
Yeah, but if you can think about hitchhiking on other people's,
Yeah.
if you got distribution, you got sales,
Yeah.
and I think communities can take advantage of that.
Oh, I think so. I think there's no question about it. But again, it goes back to some trending social media. A lot of it does.
It's a whole new game, and here we are, right
A
here.
whole new game of
But-
connection.
Yeah, but it's not a whole new game. I think a lot of the things you guys are talking about, it doesn't, like, technology doesn't stop a community from trying
no.
to grow in this way.
No.
And before we get too far off of the secret I just whispered in Brian's ear is
I don't have any secrets.
he would he would sell ad space on the inside of pizza boxes. Now you got to remember we're in Louisville, Kentucky, home of Papa John's Pizza. Okay,
Well, it's
And-
actually
and-
Jeffersonville, Indiana.
Jeffersonville, Indiana is correct. Okay, I stand corrected. And you would sell
I
advertising
didn't do
space
it with that.
on the
that place.
inside
I
of
used them as a distribution tool that where
Yeah.
things.
And I thought that is so brilliant because everyone thinks of the outside of the box, but once you open that lid, no one's looking at that side anymore. They're just looking at plain cardboard.
It's hard to get a coupon home, and it's not like here's what I said about the internet: makes the easy things hard, and the hard things easy. Yes, you can get
Yeah.
a coupon on the internet. You can get 27 billion of them, but you're lost. I mean, so
Yeah.
I went to Jim Beam one time. Speaking of them, and I got them as an advertiser with me because they said we have all these products with Jim Beam, including golf club covers.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, and they said, I said, nobody knows this. It's like having an unlisted phone number.
Yeah.
You got to tell this. I mean, somebody finally has to say, so traditional forms of advertising is what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah.
Drive people to an internet site. Otherwise, you have an unlisted telephone number. We're doing this to drive people through us
Yeah.
as a hub,
Certainly.
right?
Yes.
And the spokes go out to say, here's what's going on in Georgetown, Indiana. Here's what's going on with tissue development in outer space in Georgetown, Indiana.
Correct.
What are the
Georgetown.
chances?
Yeah.
And the list goes on. So somebody has to tell the story, make the pitch, and that hasn't changed since Berman Bailey.
Right.
Amen.
The
Amen.
pitch has
Yeah.
not changed.
That's
Speaking of which,
uh-oh.
an angle I don't know if you've considered, you are a dead ringer for Bill Gates.
Bill Gates.
Bill
dead ringer.
Gates. Yeah. These days,
Oh,
I don't know if that's a positive or negative thing to say,
Yeah,
but
well,
I grew up in Seattle area
I
around him.
like his style. I do like Bill Gates, so it's a positive as far as
think
I'm
you
concerned.
could
So I
be his
and
double.
I don't care too much about too many other situations, I guess. But
Yeah.
yeah, well,
It's weird.
Well, let
I'm
me
sitting
say
here
this
thinking,
about both of
I'm
them.
sitting here
Here's-
talking to Bill
here's the
Gates.
similarity. They both have good minds.
Oh, that's for sure. No, and
we
there
know
is
one of them does, Ryan, for sure. I think that entrepreneurship is what makes a difference in we talk about small town development or even big town. Think outside the box,
be
like
creativity.
be
Yeah.
creative.
Yes, and I think in a community when they, especially, I was listening to what you said, and it's so true. When the community says, "Well, what would we do here? What's our
Oh.
pos?" And I think the first is when you get that team together, the inventory, a site inventory. I was at I'll give a quick example. I was hired by Northwest Indiana to put tourism together in Lake County, Indiana. Maryville, Holiday Star, but it also included Gary and Whiting and all these little communities adjacent to Chicago. Guess what they have there? Two things.
I don't know.
Softball
Yeah.
fields, like
Oh.
on every corner,
Right.
and bowling alleys.
Yeah,
They
sure.
all bowl. So we went after
There's a resource.
Yeah.
the USSSA Girls World Championship softball. We went after every bowling tournament, and they were very successful because bowlers
That's
come, they bring all their family, they look at all the attractions,
Spend
they
the
eat
night.
lunch, they spend the night, and
Yeah.
they bowl.
And this along that line, talking about that tournament, Louisville has had one of the best softball development programs here. Kenny Gavin did
No.
who was it?
I did not work with the softball here. This
No,
was
no, we did.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
for Louisville itself, because we had world class
Softball.
softball players here, Gaddies, the Gaddy family. I mean, oh man, we're talking about world champions in the area.
Okay.
So that's the local Kenny Gavin was the one that said, let's bring it here.
Yeah.
Building,
Well, we've done
inexpensive area.
so many interesting things with sports in Louisville. Volleyball, the
yeah.
club volleyball, but that's more supporting the local community. And now we have like the best high school teams in the nation, like top. They're it.
Well recruited.
Well recruited. Yeah. So are we still into softball, by the way, as a city? I mean, we're the home of the Louisville Slugger, but
Well, we're into sports. Without sports, COVID would have shut, Louisville would have been shut down without the Greg Fonte, who is the sports,
And a buddy of mine.
hotelier.
Yes.
Luther James. He started with Luther, I think, at the time.
I was the director of sales at French Lick. I knew him through the convention bureau too, but we bounced around a number of times together. But he was with the sports commission, but he was with the Holiday Inn, right? Was he at the Holiday Inn?
Yeah.
Luther. When I went to French Lick
Zorn.
they hired me at French Lick.
Oh yeah.
As the director of sales.
Oh yeah.
I spent it.
That
a year
was a trip. You talk about a local connection. I think he bought the French Lick for $2 million.
Sold it for 22.
And sold it for 20 or
22.
Yeah. And then bought a golf course in Vegas. But Greg Fonte and his team, and of course it built on the previous, he worked for his boss for years, and I didn't know him very well, but I know Greg and his team and the convention bureau, the sports events that occurred kept Louisville alive.
So you got to
COVID
sell. You got to find out what your local community's got, whether it's
it's an inventory, like you said.
whether they play shuffleboard or whether they bowl or whether they box or whatever it is, whatever you got, pool tables. I don't care if we're the world's greatest knitting club. Okay, knitter.
And those ripple effects, they are going to ripple out there. I mean, you mentioned French Lick. I've got the oldest awning company in Louisville. We just replaced all of French Lick's awnings, probably as residue of the work that you did to get people up there to stay those nights in that hotel. So thank you, sir. Both of you.
Change.
I got to French Lick. They had 15,000 files of previous customers that had stayed there. And I said, how do you call them 15,000 people? They said, well, what do you, so, I had like 3 salespeople in there. And I said, here's your job today. I want you to throw 14,000 files away. Give me 1,000 files of people that in the next 5 years could stay here. And I want you to grade them green, yellow, or red. And that's the speed at which we're going to call these people, right? To get them to come here.
I love that. Yeah.
Because we
it's so practical.
So we're going to find 1,000 people we can do business with. Well, and I would say local communities have to do that.
Special interests, for instance, Southern Indiana Wheelman, but
bicycle
pedal power.
Okay.
Over there. We have a new board member in Destination Georgetown, Tim Mayer is his name, who was 30 years in the Jefferson County school system, retired January 1. He worked with us last year on what we call our Whistle Stop. You make events yourself, like we talked about. Whistle Stop Showcase over Labor Day weekend, Senior Day, 4-H Day, car shows, things like that. But he put on a 50-mile bike ride for us in coordination, and it was tagged with Southern Indiana Wheelman. And now the bike trails, the Monon bike trail.
Very big deal.
The bike trails they'll travel overnight. If you go down to Asheville and get on the I call it the cross country mountain range over through there. I mean, you got all kinds of pedal power. I call it, not mo power.
And beautiful country.
Beautiful country.
So if people wanted to get in touch with you or Destination Georgetown, how would they do it?
Yeah, we are, like I said, a 501c3 nonprofit. A Destination Georgetown.
Where do they find it? Where do they find that?
Well, it on your web. Yeah, we have a website.
Okay.
Destination Georgetown IN for Indiana.
Right, Georgetown, Indiana.
Destination Georgetown IN.
And for anyone that's interested, I just drove up there to look at the house for sale. I crossed the river and I was back in Kentucky, basically Louisville, in 8 minutes from the house.
Yeah.
That's how close it is to Louisville. And it feels like you are out in farming country. It is the sunsets are incredible. And it's a great bedroom community for this large.
We're excited about the location. As Brian mentioned, within so many miles, we're within so many minutes, not just of what's going on in downtown Louisville, but we haven't even talked about Clark County and up there at the Amazon development and the old, I call it the powder plant.
I know,
it used to be.
Was right.
Up in Charlestown area. It's
20,000 jobs have been developed there and 20,000 more are on the books to be built. Amazon and Meta is coming there.
Yeah. So that connection, and that's one Southern Indiana helped make that. And Indiana's been sold as in developments now, development areas, and that area got some nice funding from the state. through what they call the Ready program, and I think we're in Ready 2 now. But that whole area is, well, up near Utica, of course. It is basically Utica area up in Charlestown, but
Hmm.
it's
Very
fabulous. Bedrooms. They're going to need bedrooms. They're
Yeah.
building houses, which is great for the community. And we got Floyd Central High School is a blue ribbon school system.
yeah.
New Albany Floyd Central.
Right.
New Albany Floyd County. I better get it.
An
correct.
amazing.
But
School
they have
system.
done a great job
beau-
with their expansion and with their student.
I visited, dropped someone off at the tennis courts for tennis lessons. I was like, "What country club is this?" Oh no, this is just Floyd County.
Yeah.
High school.
Well, they've been state champs a few times in tennis, and part of the IU basketball program for a year. So it's a strong Southern Indiana, and I don't want to forget Harrison County, the casino. We've talked about that development.
Golly,
That's where we both live now.
Yes.
So own property. He lives
We
there.
ended up not knowing not in touch with each other at the time,
Yeah,
a quarter of a mile apart,
Really?
all the way down in Harrison County.
Are you up on the hill too?
He's on
I
the hill
am
too.
looking over the river.
Yes.
Yeah.
His piece of
He's
property.
looking at the sunset. I look back.
His
at the river.
piece of
Oh,
property
okay.
is 500 feet up on that bluff, and you can literally see 180 degrees
Yeah.
up and down the river. It's
You
incredible.
can see the casino from there.
Yeah.
We're about 2 miles from the casino.
When that came about, I think I told you briefly about that story. Of course, Larry Townsend was John Y. Brown's
John Y. Brown was the governor,
Governor.
married to Phyllis George Brown.
Phyllis George Brown. But Larry was very up in the upper echelon of that administration, and he's the one that had bought property down there. And there was multiple counties putting bids in to get the casino there, but he was a show person. I mean, he was good. I mean, he going to
Did they not change the
put a
line?
gondola across the river from
Oh,
there
cool.
to Valley Station. Of course, that didn't quite make it, but he got the boat there.
And did they not change this?
Yeah.
Harrison County said, "Okay, we'll do it."
We'll do it.
Floyd County didn't want it. Clark County didn't want it because they were worried about having a casino. And tell us about the Harrison County line.
What happened
Oh, yeah.
was
This is
they had to do
interesting.
a survey, and part of the original riverboat statute was that the boat had to move 500 feet in each direction.
This is
Okay.
a casino we're
They
talking
have a
about.
casino
here.
license.
Yeah.
Yeah, at the casino. So, okay, they got a survey and said, the Floyd County line is 300 feet.
Yeah, it's pretty
Oh.
close. It's right on it.
Well, guess what? Well, we have to have a new survey. Well, the survey ended up
Where it needed to be.
where it needed
Where
to
it
be.
should be.
The boat didn't move. The plan for the boat didn't move. But it was like, that was a survey done back in the 1800s. It was in there. And we know a lot of them are that way. So
Yeah.
it could very well, but we know. So in that case, the boat moved 500 feet up, 500 feet back down. I mean, back below it, downstream. And that was the only location because of the river and the currents and the location of what is called Riverport. Used to be a town there. Riverport used to be a town.
Okay.
Had a P.O. box. We, my partner and I, Claire Patnode, who helped build some Cracker Barrels and hotels. We're in partnership with hotels in, Southern Sellersburg and Corden, and built a Cracker Barrel. We didn't build it. We sold property at Cracker Barrel, so we were a Cracker Barrel affiliate. But anyway, we got permit to build a hotel. If you go down to Doolittle Hill, which I told you we lived on top of the hill.
That's how you get to
And
the property.
Yep,
Okay.
that's how
His house.
you get there.
If you go another, maybe less than half a mile, there's a area back. We had permit to build a 70-room hotel right there as a spinoff.
Now let
Wow.
me tell you how small a community this is.
Yeah.
Because I did a brochure for Claire Patnode
Oh, did you really?
at the
I didn't know that.
at the Ramada in. She built a Ramada at the Kentucky Speedway,
Yeah. Well, that was.
and she goes, "Why don't you do a brochure for me? A brochure about the hotel because they wanted to sell groups to go to the Kentucky Speedway." And I thought, well, now in a
Exit 55, wasn't it?
I don't know, but here's what I did. I made a 3-dimensional car that you built yourself. That was a race car, and everything that was on the brochure, like they had hot tub rooms. So I put hot tubs on the license plate of the Indy car. So you made your own Indy car, like a White Castle hamburger box,
Yeah.
folded up and it became a car.
Yeah.
Folded here. And that's what they handed out when they called on local groups to try to bring your group to the
Yeah.
to the Ramada at the Speedway. And anyway, it went over really well. And
Well, we
you
were
go back
fun.
6 months later, and it was sitting on the desk with the 1-800 Ramada behind the executive's desk, still there, because they didn't throw it away because they built it, right?
Yeah.
So it made me think you got to do interactive
oh sure
advertising.
that was ahead of its time a little bit there too. That's great.
I never tried to repeat myself, but I always tried to do something. You know, I ran an
Unique.
advertising agency for 25 years.
Yeah.
Something out of the box. I mean, something that just would
Non-traditional, as you call it.
traditional. Yeah.
Yeah, non-traditional.
And you said, what are we going to talk about on this show? Well, guess what?
Yeah.
Well,
We've talked our way through this whole thing.
Are we? Well,
We talked.
just in case there's a time slot here, I wanted to mention
Yeah.
Yes, your
old
farm.
farmhouse.
Yes, show a picture.
Thi-
Show it to the camera.
This is now Nova Park, and there's a company out of New Albany called The Root, which is a small business incubator that offers audio, video services, 3D printing, things like that for small business in southern Indiana.
And they're there at that.
And
At your old
they have a
farmhouse.
branch here as well as downtown New Albany. So they're at we call it the Yenawine Beams farmstead. But yeah, that's where it is now. Plus, this is another 40 acres of science technology center. It's an innovation center
Neat.
where Redwire is going in,
Yeah.
and then right adjacent to it's a 200-acre park. It's going to be a regional park. Talking about sports
Mhm.
venue. We did have the Little League World Series for our region, Great Lakes region, that was in California. I think I mentioned that. That's the type thing. HYR, a Little League team, participated out. They didn't win it, but they had a good showing and good following. And so those are the type of events that can go with this. And Redwire is going to help us put on we've asked them to help us put on part of the STEM program for 3 or 4 counties in the high schools where they would be the primary supporter with their science and technology and NASA. And they are doing internship programs as well.
Oh no,
So
That's interesting.
that will work well for Purdue. Some of their students have already shown interest. IU, is connected. IU has a development empowerment office here as well at the Root at Nova Park. So yeah,
Wow.
they've got a whole exit off of the highway up to that. It's really
Yeah.
cool. So anyway,
Okay.
thank you for coming.
Yeah.
my pleasure.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
coming. Thank you for Boost Check that
Oh.
supports
Yeah.
the mission
Really
of
sweet.
the Animal Protection Association in Clark County, and I appreciate the Jim Beanball. I
Well,
like collectable things. That's very kind.
As a
of you.
longtime friend,
Yes.
I just want to say thank you and what you've done for the community.
Well,
You know,
it's
there
kind of you to say.
we talked about heroes a little bit.
Yeah.
Are what celebrities? Well, people like Brian and Greg and several other people in the community that have, they've made it happen over the last George Spalding, Pat Kennedy. I could go on and on. I
Yeah,
don't like to miss
I know
any.
all those folks, and
But-
there's a
Yeah.
But they've made it. And Harold Workman.
Harold and you mentioned Joe Bell, who
Yeah,
who I'm in a magazine with after he retired. Joe Bell
Really?
called Sizzle in the City. It was about sporting events,
Oh,
and I worked with Joe Bell.
Yeah.
I mean, what a peach he was, and
yeah.
I mean, just all these people in the community. But here's the thing. I mean, you can either sit and watch people do things, or you can
Or you can do
or
things.
you can do things.
And by things, that
even
means
as simple
anything.
as this.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't be a watcher,
Absolutely.
be a doer.
And-
I always liked being involved, and I just always was. I was always involved.
You asked me a question. I have to go back to it about influences. People like Al. I'm talking influencing me.
Yeah.
Al Sneeder,
Yeah.
building the riverfront. The only thing was down there was the kingfish,
Yes.
and he
Yeah.
spent his family's money along with some redevelopment dollars. Boom.
To develop the
You know,
Louisville
he was
and River.
thinking-
Built the Galt House,
Yeah.
and he was the director of sales.
Waterfront
He
area.
was-
It's amazing.
He built the Executive Inn out at the airport.
Yep.
And you're probably not familiar. They've since it's
It's gone.
40 years old.
I know.
Or whatever. he built that for a company out of Indiana that was doing the executive ends, like Owensboro and
Small chain,
Evansville
yeah.
or whatever. He built it for, and the guy ran out of money, so he took it over. Look what happened. You know, Paul Lurson.
Oh yeah, I worked for Paul. I worked for Schneider myself.
Oh.
And you know, here's the funny, Al Schneider, who built, you know, the 3 largest hotels in Kentucky,
Oh, yeah.
that he put together. But if he wanted a brick, he bought a brick company. He didn't go buy bricks. He's like, we got to have a lot of bricks. We need concrete. We need asphalt.
Yeah.
Let's buy an asphalt company. Is that true?
Exactly. One short story on that. I'm sorry, you got me started. Anyway, we were at the Galt House, and this would probably been maybe May of 72, May, and it opened in 72 of August. And, you know, Hubbock of Kentucky, great designer,
Yep.
furnishings and
Interior
everything.
design,
And
yeah.
their artist was there up in one of the riverfront suites. That was a showroom to start with. And he was showing this and he was showing that. And Al Sneeder gets up and said, let me show you how to do that. No, yes, no, yes. Let's go have some lunch.
So he was
sorry.
just the most interesting person. But when I went to work for Executive West, I was the director of sales and with a great team there. But my check came from the first company that he put together. It was called, like, what was it, Schneider Building Supply or something like that. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
I don't.
yeah. Home Supply
Home Supply.
out in close to 7th Street.
Yeah, at the underpass.
Yes.
I mean, this little hardware store basically, and he's got how many employees? I don't know, hundreds.
Yeah, for sure.
The Galt House is 1,200 rooms, and Executive West 611, I'll recall. But I mean, we hosted every star, every event. It was incredible, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. John Wayne was there once.
No.
He came
They
in
were
for
buddies, weren't they?
Yeah.
And I'll tell you who else.
Really?
Who was Daniel Boone? Who played Daniel Boone? Fess Parker.
Fess
They were
Parker.
buddies.
They were buddies. He was. His statue has it into 4th and River.
Yes.
His statue down there that they put up there, and he's going like this.
Yeah.
I just remember him going around, and John Greer from down in not Mockport, but Brandenburg area, Meade County, was his construction man. And there's several people that I know now whose fathers worked with John Greer or for John Greer. And a yellow legal pad,
Yeah.
tape on the wall. That's what I want.
Right.
Build
that, huh?
Build it that way. And it was,
Really?
but he's pointing. That's what he's saying to John Greer. I want it built here. I want it this way, and I want revolving restaurants. And
And that's what's there now. And the statue is pointing up at it. Yeah.
Yes.
And let me tell you, they said Schneider was the toughest guy. Yeah, he was a tough guy, right? I mean, no nonsense, tough guy. And, but here's the thing about him. Executive West, every person that worked in that hotel ate the buffet every day.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh yeah.
They took the food downstairs for the maids and
Yeah.
I mean,
I love that.
And that was part of Lurson's management style. You know that with Sneeder, he wrote it off. But
everybody sat down in the dining room. Like everybody on the sales staff went in the dining room, sat down, and had lunch.
yeah,
Yeah.
Sneeder, boy, with that era, we talk about different people, but he built about every Catholic church in Louisville.
Okay.
Okay, that was and
That was him.
Catholic
Yes.
schools.
I'm connecting
and,
the dots.
And his family was so important. He had several daughters.
Yeah.
I used to, when I was running the health club at the executive end when I was in school, they were all swimming. I got to know all of them, and it was a real family. And I think that gave him the support. We're back to what makes it.
Yeah. Right back to
sometimes
the
that
beginning.
Family support. Yeah,
Yeah.
back to what you showed
Well,
some interest
It started
in.
with your dog too, right? And you mentioned pets can be something that bring that family together, and events and revolve around those,
Yeah.
and people, communities.
We could talk. Thank you, Brian, for
We'll
the
do- we'll do it.
invitation.
See,
Very nice
very
meeting
nice.
you.
We can
Good
do it.
luck in your
We'll do it
travels
again.
and-
Thank you.
Just remember this as an outlet. So if you have something
Yeah.
that you want
I will.
to come and talk about,
yeah.
come visit
Sure,
us.
sure.
Come visit us.
Can we talk about derby socks for your cohort here?
Well,
That's-
I like his and yours a lot better than mine.
We'll have to
So
get
we-
you.
Well,
there.
you've got the
Frank
table on the
Green's
way.
to
Yeah.
Digliani or whoever I was trying to think of the artist that did squares. But anyway,
Yeah.
it was
Thank
a
you.
pleasure to have you. And I'm glad to see you here.
Yeah,
Thanks.
It was a pleasure.
Nice meeting you.
We'll do it
Nice to meet
again.
you too.